Hey YouTube, Moose Cow here with another rule video for Kings and Kaisers. This time I'm going to go over a few different topics. I'm going to talk about convoys and how they work. I'm going to talk about cruiser detection, and I'm going to talk about the abilities of submarines. Target selecting, surprise strike, and submerging, which target selecting and surprise strike, if you're familiar with those, pretty much from other accidentalized or accidentalized games or BBR or global, etc. Those are basically the same, but I'm going to go over them regardless. Submerging is a little different though, as a note for that. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about those real quick. Let's start off with convoy disruptions. So here's a card from our Kings and Kaisers rule reference deck, the second half of the Kings and Kaisers deck. Available on Combat Miniatures if you are interested. But anyway, basically, this is a really long, drawn out way to say that our convoys, the way the convoys work, it's exactly how they work in out-of-box 1940 Global. So, out-of-box 1914, accidentalized 1914, has no convoys. There are no convoys, which is a little ridiculous considering the impact of submarines. So anyway, we just added, for Kings and Kaisers, we added convoys onto the map. Now, you don't have to get these, but convoy markers are very, very helpful. And what I like to do is I like to double side them. These are both HBG markers, and I like to get them and glue them together so they basically live on the map. So I can just flip it if it's disrupted, flip it back if it's not disrupted. You don't have to do that. That's just what my little customization trick is, because I like to do that as opposed to like, okay, I got a convoy here, let me go fish one out of a box. Instead, my convoys just live on the map. But that's just how I do it. But anyway, again, here is the card, and basically just goes over how when you roll for a convoy disruption, at the end of your turn when you collect your money, cruisers will roll 1 dice each, submarines roll 2 dice each, and dreadnoughts that are undamaged roll 1 die each. Transports don't roll dice. So very similar to out-of-box Global, basically exactly the same. If you roll, although I will admit that, side note, asterisk, if you declare unrestricted submarine warfare with Germany, for that round, your submarines do roll 3 dice each for when you do convoy damage. When you roll for convoys. Disruption. Let's see. And it's exactly like out of box in that a roll of 1 through 3 does that up to that amount of damage, and a roll of 5 through 6 does nothing. If you're familiar with BBR, you'll know that the rules for convoy disruption, if you're well versed in the various versions of the Bloodbath rule set, each version of BBR, the convoy system changed or was tweaked. And that was something that personally drove me crazy, that it kept getting changed. The wording of it kept needing to be revised. You'd have automatic +1s to save time, but then it became down to like, what determines that, whether fighters have the +1 or not, et cetera. Just the various versions. It was just annoying that it was always tweaked. When we first started Kings and Kaisers, we had the automatic +1s, but then ultimately we got like for 4, 5, and 6 were just a 1. We originally had it like that, but then ultimately we decided to get rid of it and just differentiate from BBR. And just keep it simple. A miss is a miss, or rather a ineffective roll is ineffective. There's no automatic ones. So that does mean you need to roll each convoy. And like I said, each enemy cruiser convoys you for 1 die with 1 die each. Each submarine convoys you with 2 dice each, unless you are Germany and you did unrestricted submarine warfare. And each undamaged dreadnought convoys 1 die each against you, hostile enemy ships. Okay, so that's that little addressing the convoy rule out of the way, and that is also and the end of our rule book, or at the end of the phases in the rule book, under the collect income phase on page 31 into 32. So you can, if you want the rule book file, you can look in the video description, and that'll take you to the rulebook file and such. And yeah, there you go. So that is that rule out of the way. Okay, now I'm going to talk about cruiser detection. This was a rule, just throwing this out there. This is a rule that Madman came up with. Totally credit him. It's a very good rule, I think. And one of the ways we came up with, how do you combat subs and stuff, and kind of changing how the cruisers in 1914 work, and all that. So, if you're familiar with 1914, and you're familiar with other Axis and Allies games in 1914, there's no destroyers. There's just cruisers. There's no destroyers. I know, right? Excuse me. So rather than making it, so we thought about this when we were designing Kings and Kaisers, and we decided rather than making it, because there are different kinds of ships, admittedly, this is, the development, the rise of transitioning from pre-dreadnoughts to dreadnoughts, eventually to battleships post-war, cruisers develop, destroyers develop, etc., etc., etc. We decided to, instead of making it so everybody had to buy destroyers for each nation, we decided it was far more economical and also made sense in terms of gameplay to just essentially combine cruisers and destroyers into one unit, right? You're probably thinking, if you're not familiar with this, you're probably thinking, what is he talking about? Okay, so basically, cruisers, a cruiser is not literally one ship in this game, generally. In any Axis and Allies game, one infantry is not literally one infantry. It's like a vague description, or a vague representation of amounts, and it varies from unit to unit. It's not like a super literal thing, etc., etc. So essentially what that means is one cruiser is not literally one cruiser, but it's like, basically like a division of ships, which can include cruisers and destroyers. If you want to think about it that way, think about it that way, okay? So basically what it means is that cruisers have the same ability as destroyers, but the difference is, because again, this is 1914, this is World War I we're talking about, things being as effective, it's not like the destroyers of World War II, of your Axis and Allies games, of BBR, etc. There's no auto detection of submarines with destroyers. You have to choose. You have to choose whether you're going to detect subs. So if a cruiser normally attacks and defends at a 3. Submarines always attack at a 2 and defend at a 2. If you're not going to detect with your cruiser, it rolls at a 3. If you're going to choose to detect a submarine, then it rolls at a 2. Okay, these are our official hit dice. These are 2s and these are 3s. So basically, just as an example, I'm just going to give you an example, right? And rather than keep on describing it. So let's say these 2 German subs here come into Sea Zone 18, the beginning of the game, and they want to attack this destroyer and this transport, this French destroyer and transport. The French player has to decide if they're going to detect the submarines, so that these submarines cannot target select, and therefore roll at a higher combat value, or it'll choose if it detects the submarines. So if it detects the submarines, then it's going to roll at a 2, but it means that the submarines cannot target select. So let's say the French player decides not to detect because he is feeling lucky and likes the better odds and is kind of cocksure that the German submarines are going to miss. So he's not going to detect that battle, right? Those are the 2 subs. They both missed. The French cruiser fights back with a 3, and he gets a hit. So his or mine rather, you know, my cockiness pays off, right? So now we got still a sub at a 2, and he's still not going to detect, and he's going to fight back at a 3. Second round of combat, the German. This is also after you roll for mines, but I'm not doing that in this demonstration. So he rolls again, misses. Okay, that's the French cruiser, and the German sub misses again. French sub hits. Okay, well that was a bad demonstration essentially, but essentially he got lucky that neither of those subs hit, and so he was able to roll at a higher combat value. Now, however, if say the second sub was still left, and can I get a hit? No. Let's just say it got a hit. All right, so it got a hit. Cruiser's immediately destroyed because he's not detecting, because he's target selecting the cruiser, which means then the transport is auto-killed. Okay, so that's why you're going to want to detect. Usually, in most cases, you're going to want, unless you feel lucky, you're going to want to detect, because then there's no target select, and maybe you can still fight back and hit him back. So say he is detecting, and you can change it at any round of at the top of any round of combat. You decide if you're going to detect or not. Okay, so in this instance, submarine hit the cruiser. Even though the submarine hit, the cruiser still gets to fight back, and he misses again. But there was a chance of him being able to knock out this submarine. So that is essentially how cruiser detection works. And cruiser detection, it's the same. It pretty much operates under the same principle, offensive or defensive, attacking or defending. It works under the same principle. Top of each round, your cruiser decides if it's going to detect submarines or not. If there's no attacking or defending submarines to worry about, then there's no need to detect. But if you have enough submarines, you can cause a lot of cruisers to roll at a lesser hit value, enemy cruisers, you know. Now, here's the one thing. If I came in with three subs, each cruiser, if it's detecting, can only detect up to 2 submarines. However, if your cruiser is detecting, you cannot be target selected, okay? So in this situation, these 2 subs cannot target select. This submarine can target select, but it cannot target the cruiser that is, it cannot target the cruiser that is detecting. It can, however, still target select the enemy transport. You know, normally, you know, transports, you have to wait until the end of combat. In this game, no. And same with like BBR and 1940, etc. Submarines can always target transports, even unless they're being detected. This submarine is not being detected. So in this instance, you'd have 2 submarines roll against the cruiser, and the third submarine, which got a hit, and the third submarine, which you know, if the third submarine, the player wants to target select the transport, he can. He just can't target select the other cruiser. So he chooses if he's going to target select or not. Let's just say he is, and he misses. But if he got a hit, then that would be gone too, as well. Or that could theoretically get taken out before the cruiser. In that instance, both things died in the same round, but say you missed on the cruiser, you could still kill the transport and accomplish what you wanted to do, okay? So that basically makes sense there. Okay, so submerging. The way submerging works in this game is also different, and I came up with it kind of as a throwback to other Axis and Allies games, but also to make submerging a little bit different. So, say you have just a cruiser here, right? Let's say there's an enemy cruiser here. You're the German player. It's your turn. You're going to move. Cruisers, unlike destroyers from like 1940 or BBR, or a lot of other accidentalized games, they do not automatically stop movement. So just like out of box 1914, on the German player's turn, he could theoretically take this one of these subs, or any subs, and move through here. The cruiser does not detect unless it's the top of combat. The cruiser doesn't detect unless combat is occurring, right? You also cannot submerge unless combat is occurring. So if you decide to, let's say this is a good example. This submarine here goes and moves up here and attacks Sea Zone 19. Or let's say you go in with 2 subs, okay? Let's say you go in with 3 subs, okay? All right. Top of combat occurs, cruiser's not detecting, or let's say it's a dreadnought. I don't know, just as an example. Let's say it's a dreadnought. There's no cruiser detection to even worry about, right? And it cannot detect these 3 subs. What you could do is you could choose to submerge, because provided you survive a round of combat. So you can't, submerges aren't automatic in this game. And you may do them for one reason or another. You may do them for a positioning thing, right? You basically, top of combat, if you're able to submerge and you want to submerge for some reason, you designate, I'm going to submerge with this submarine, and these 2 submarines are going to fight, right? And they're going to target select, okay? So regardless, say the destroyer, let's say these subs kill this, or or they just damage it, or whatever. This 3rd submarine, provided he doesn't get a hit and you don't choose the submarine that we're going to submerge, you can submerge the submarine in that sea zone or any adjacent sea zone. So you can actually cheat your movement. In this instance, you can actually start from 8. Normally submarines can only move 2, but you can go 1, 2, and then submerge into another sea zone. Okay, so technically you could actually cheat your submarine a 3rd space and submerge. And once a submarine is submerged, it's submerged. You cannot come in with another cruiser and try and detect that submarine. If a submarine is submerged, it doesn't unsubmerge, and it is completely safe until the next turn for that player. So Germany, in this instance, Germany's next turn, the sub would resubmerge, even if there's already stuff in here or whatever, and then it could be free to move again. And basically, kind of make it as a distraction, as a kind of serve as a distraction for the allied player, because you have these obnoxious submarines all over the map and stuff. The other benefit of this is that Germany has a national objective with submarines. For every submarine they have in the Atlantic, for every submarine in a sea zone, rather. So if you have 2 submarines in one sea zone, same effect as 1 submarine in one sea zone. Any submarine in the Atlantic, any sea zone in the Atlantic that 1 through 24 that has submarines, basically gives Germany 2 IPCs at the end of their turn. They collect 2. So if you have submarines all over the map in different sea zones, you get like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. You can make a lot of money. And if your submarine is submerged, if you successfully submerge your submarine, there's nothing they can really do about it, at least for, a round or whatever. So might seem a little weird, but that is the rule for our subs. And you can either submerge in the sea zone that you would have conducted combat in, or you can submerge to an adjacent sea zone. But if you go to an adjacent sea zone with, like, say you submerge multiple subs, if you submerge multiple subs, and you can either submerge in that sea zone or collectively to one sea zone, to one other sea zone. You can't like send one here and you can't send one here to submerge, if that makes sense. So again, submerging doesn't come up a lot, or at least in my games it hasn't come up a lot, but it can present itself in interesting scenarios, basically. But yeah, the main thing is if you submerge, you cannot be forced to unsubmerge. You can't be forced to engage in combat if you've submerged. And you can submerge into adjacency zones. You cannot, if you choose to submerge, you cannot fire that round. But yeah, your subs that you've chosen to submerge instead of engaging in combat, they have to survive a round of combat, and then they can do either of those, either into the C zone or the adjacency zone. I hope that is making sense. But yeah, that's another reason why, you know, if you have cruisers, I recommend you have them detect. But there you go. So yeah, just covered convoys, cruiser detection, and submarine submerging. In terms of target selecting and surprise strike, target offense is for if you're attacking with a submarine and you're not detected, you can target select specific defending ships to fire against. If you are defending and you're able to surprise strike, you basically fire blindly against the attacker, and the attacker gets to choose. The attacker gets to choose, but that what attacking piece gets hit, and it does not get to fire. If you're defending and you get target selected and you get hit, you're not able to fire back. That's the basics. General basics of target selecting. Again, target selecting and submerging, if you're familiar with BBR, exactly the same. Exactly the same, pretty much. It's just really the submerging that is different in this game. So I just wanted to have a video just kind of addressing how that works. Again, say you're over here, you could do, as another example, up in C-Zone 2 here, let's say these two subs come and attack this cruiser. He decides not to submerge. Oh, sorry, not submerge. The cruiser decides not to detect. The German player then decides, okay, he's not detecting. I'm actually going to submerge both subs. Cruiser rolls die for his defense. Okay, he kills one. He kills one sub, but he submerges, and he can move. He can either submerge in this C zone. He can either submerge in this C zone, or he can move. Or he can submerge and move it into this C zone, even though he already moved 2 spaces. Okay, so that's that. The whole idea of that is basically like if you had, like, say you had an attack in C zone 20, you could have ships come from here and you can have ships come from here, but then you decide to retreat, because you can retreat in this game. You can't retreat in 1914. You can only break off, which is just end combat in the C zone. We decided to add the retreat option in. So if you came up from here to 20 to an attack, and then also attack from 21, you could theoretically retreat everything to C zone 21 if you wanted to, even the ships that came up from there. So basically you decided to kind of apply that to submerging as well, so that you can submerge into an adjacent C zone. And again, if it is submerged, nobody can force you to unsubmerge until the beginning of your next turn, which you would have to emerge. You can't stay submerged on your next turn just because you want to. You gotta risk engaging in combat again in order to do so. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Again, if you have questions or need clarifications, shout out in the put a comment below and ask for any clarifications, and so on and so forth. And there you go. All right, stay tuned for more videos when I can make them, if I can. We'll be doing our Kings and Kaisers tournament in just a few days, and so I just want to make a video while I can and bounce that out. So thanks for watching, and take care.